Hello friends, welcome to Insights I Can Initiative. Today our videos is the 50th video. So thanks for all of your support for all these days, and we are going to continue this initiative for many more days, or in fact for it's going to be a very long time. And I hope you will give this kind of support to me in future also, and we will come up with many more initiative. Now let's see in today's video what we are going to discuss. In today's video, we are going to discuss about pregnancy as well as the termination of pregnancy rights of women. Recently, Supreme Court commented regarding one of the pregnancy related case, and Supreme Court even criticized the decision given by the Gujarat High Court. We will see what is that is all about, and why it criticized the Gujarat High Court and all these things. First, let us see the syllabus mapping. This topic is related to UPSC General Studies Paper 2, that is Judiciary as well as Government Policies and Intervention. This is a syllabus mapping, and in this video, we are going to discuss about these particular issues. First, why it is in news. These abortion rights, why it is in news, and especially in India. Then, what is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971 is speaking about, and we amended, of course, in 2021. What is that amendment is all about? Then we'll discuss about what are the reproductive rights of women as well as unmarried women in generally. And we're also going to discuss about minor children or minors. If the minors get pregnanted, then what is the procedure? What about the POCSO Act? All those things we are going to discuss in this video along with the present issue. Now, without any further delay, let us see what we are going to regarding this particular issue. First, Supreme Court. Supreme Court of India granted permission for the termination of pregnancy. So how many months old? 27 months old pregnant women who who experienced the sexual harassment. Of course, she subjected to the rape, but of course, according to the Supreme Court handbook on the gender justice, we are not going to use the word rape. Instead of that, we are using the sexual harassment. Okay, that woman subjected to sexual harassment, and now Supreme Court allowed her to go for the medical termination of the pregnancy, even though it is at 27 weeks. In this video, I am going to explain there are certain times, 20 weeks, up to 24 weeks, beyond 24 weeks. There are certain timelines are there. I will explain. Those timelines are fixed by Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Okay, so that we will discuss about very soon. Now, Supreme Court allowed the medical termination of pregnancy with respect to women who subjected to sexual harassment, and the pregnancy is about 27-week old. Now let's see. So what are the Supreme Court observations? So here Supreme Court observations are, first thing is she subjected to sexual harassment. First one, the woman, she was subjected to sexual harassment. That you have to understand. So she was having the unwanted pregnancy. She was having the unwanted pregnancy. Now, Supreme Court in this particular case commented that pregnancy as well as the motherhood will be the joy to the woman, and it should not be forceful, and we should not impose this motherhood on women. If the mother is having some unexpected or unwanted pregnancy due to some unfortunate incident, it is not going to be joyful. Rather than the joyful of the pregnancy, it is going to be the mental harassment to the woman, this unwanted child, unwanted pregnancy. To stop this kind of things, Supreme Court allowed the medical termination. So now in this context, initially this petitioner, this woman, initially she approached to Gujarat High Court. Actually Gujarat High Court, it delayed. Okay, number one, the mistake done by the Gujarat High Court here. Number one, unnecessary delay, because during these stages of the pregnancy, if you are delaying, then pregnancy is going to be the very, it's going to be so many weeks are going to be there, and the fetus is going to be so matured, and the medical termination will be very, very difficult. So first thing is delay, as well as even though Supreme Court ordered, Supreme Court is dealing with this case. Even though Supreme Court is dealing with this case, Gujarat High Court rejected the appeal of that woman, even though that is under the matter is examined by the Supreme Court. Because of these two issues, Supreme Court criticized the Gujarat High Court, the way it handled this case. I hope you understood now. Let's see what are the Supreme Court observation. Forcing a woman to have a child is nothing but because of this, sexual harassment. It is against the constitutional philosophy, because women is having all rights regarding her physical as well as the mental rights. This kind of unwanted pregnancy obviously will affect not only on the physical, even it affects in the mental health. Students, in India, this kind of gender discrimination is also there a lot on this kind of fetus. That is the reason in India even the gender determination is also crime. Tell me, students, which act deals with the gender determination of pregnancy? It is dealing by which act? According to which act it is crime? And the Supreme Court, it set aside the order given by the Gujarat High Court. Even the Supreme Court judges B.V. Nagaratna and Ujjal Bhuyan, they criticized the Gujarat High Court's approach in dealing with this particular case. They noted that the marriage, like I said earlier, must be a joyful thing to women. It should not be forceful on the woman's life. And regarding the medical termination of pregnancy, in India, medical termination of pregnancy used to be regulated by Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. Later it was amended in 2021. Okay, let's see some of the major differences between these two acts. The first one, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, it was applied to only married women. That means unmarried women were not allowed to get aborted. But this kind of gender discrimination was abolished, and this Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 2021, even unmarried women also can request for the medical termination of pregnancy. So marriage should not be treated as a parameter for abortion. And of course, in the first act, it is subscribing that only up to 20 weeks medical termination is allowed. Beyond 20 weeks, it is not allowed. But now the technology is developed, new medical procedure have been evolved. In this condition, even up to 24 weeks, this medical termination is allowed. Beyond 24 weeks, medical termination will be allowed only on the advice of the advisory boards, medical advisory boards. Beyond 24 weeks, that too, if the woman, that fetus is having some abnormalities, fetal abnormalities. But in this case, the fetal abnormalities were not there, but the woman was subjected to sexual harassment, and the delay was due to the Gujarat High Court. It not due to the petitioner, or it not due to the medical examination. So this thing you have to understand. Now, women up to 20 weeks, okay, they can go for the abortion by taking the suggestion of one medical practitioner. 20 to 24 weeks by taking the advice of the two registered medical practitioner. After 24 weeks, this medical termination allowed only in conditions such as when the fetus is abnormal or fetus is injured to the health of the mother. In those conditions only, the medical termination will be allowed. Next, in India, abortion laws. In India, abortion laws are 1971 as well as the 2021, like I said earlier. And it is specifying what is this Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act is speaking about. It is speaking about who can terminate the pregnancy. Like I said earlier, 20 weeks, 24 weeks, married women or unmarried women, when can they terminate the pregnancy and where can they terminate the pregnancy? Okay, it must be in the government hospital or it must be under the supervision of the registered medical practitioner, like that. All these specific details are clearly mentioned in the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Next, the amendments. Already I explained you what are the amendments brought by the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 2021. The eligibility. Like I said earlier, between 20 to 24 weeks, the following conditions of women, they are eligible to get their medical termination. Unmarried women, in case woman is under 18 years, then even the POCSO Act also will be applicable. Okay. Next, if the pregnancy is a result of the sexual harassment or incest, that means incest means obviously pregnancy due to due to the relatives, close blood relatives, that is known as incest. Okay, immediate family member. Major deformation in the fetus, fetal deformation, and if it is a result of failed contraceptions, contraceptive, male contraception, female contraception, you know that contraceptives are the one which prevent the pregnancy. They're supposed to. If they failed, obviously that is not the mistake of the woman, so they can go for the medical termination. And if the fetus growth is injurious to the physical as well as mental health of the mother, and in case of the miscarriage, if the baby is dead inside, in that condition also obviously this kind of medical termination is allowed. All these are the eligibility regarding the medical termination of pregnancy. Now let's see. In 1994, actually because of the gender determination of the fetus, it is leading to the female infanticides, killing of the female fetus. To prevent that, in 1994, Government of India this Parliament enacted one act that is known as PCPNDT, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, PCPNDT. It was enacted in 1994 to prevent the misuse of the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. This act is clearly prohibiting the gender determination of the fetus. If anyone is determining the gender, then obviously they will be penalized. That you have to understand, very, very important. And here, to terminate the medical pregnancy, obviously women don't require the permission of the spouse. That means permission of the husband is not required. Even husband should not force the wife also regarding the pregnancy. This kind of termination of the pregnancy. In case the husband is forcing the wife, then obviously the husband will be booked under IPC 312, 313 under the cause of the miscarriage. So, and even Domestic Violence Act also will attract. The case of unmarried women, like I said earlier, 1971 Act did not cover the unmarried women. Now 2021 Act is covering the unmarried women. We know that. Then Supreme Court judgment regarding that, we discussed already what Supreme Court said. Students, previously denying the termination of pregnancy to unmarried women, it was nothing but denying the Article 21. Because irrespective of the marriage, every woman should have equal reproductive rights. Regarding this, even Supreme Court observed that on 21st July 2022, Supreme Court observed that even 24 weeks pregnancy was also medically terminated because that is due to that pregnancy was due to the sexual harassment. And because of the Supreme Court judgments, in a series of judgments in 2020, 2019, because of that, Parliament enacted the law, that is Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 2021. Now, what are the reproductive rights? Generally, we very frequently we use this word, reproductive rights of women. What are they? They are, so women, access towards education. What kind of education? Sexual education, as well as the education about the contraceptive. This is the women reproductive rights, as well as what type of contraceptive to use. Okay, whether the male contraceptive to use, female contraceptive to use, that is also the reproductive right of the woman. Apart from that, whether to have a children or not. And regarding the number of children, how many number of children to have, all these are the rights of women, and all this comes under the reproductive rights of women. Not only these rights subjected to India, even they are in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goal 3.1 as well as 3.7 and 3.6, if you look at that, Sustainable Development Goal 3.1, it talks about reducing the maternal mortality rate, and Sustainable Development Goal 3.7, it talks about universal access to sexual and reproductive health as well as rights, both SDG 3.7 and SDG 5.6. They talk about the Sustainable Development Goals in relation to the women reproductive rights. Next, these women reproductive rights also talks about what are the consequences women can face during the unwanted pregnancy, what kind of health as well as physical health as well as the mental health women will get because in the conditions of unwanted pregnancy, and giving the safe abortion is also one of the reproductive rights of the women. All this comes under the reproductive rights of women. Next, POCSO Act. If in any case, if minor is subjected to pregnancy, then obviously the medical practitioner, whoever that, he has to inform to the police without revealing the details of the minor, because obviously we have to protect the privacy of that minor also. But overall, that particular case has to be reported to the police according to the POCSO norm. Both POCSO as well as the medical termination of pregnancy, they are harmonious to each other. They are not contradiction to each other. And if you look at the world, across the world, there are some countries, even they completely prohibited the termination of pregnancy. And in some countries, they are allowed with conditions, in countries like India. Whereas in countries like European countries, in those countries, this medical termination of pregnancy is broadly legal, irrespective of any, any restriction. Now, yesterday's video, we are going to discuss which of the following statements about significant moon mission is true. Okay, the answer is Apollo 11 was the first incorrect. It is talking about Apollo 11 was the first one to touch on the moon. This was the incorrect statement. Rest of the three statements are right. Okay. Next. Yesterday we discussed about which country is the fourth country to successfully land a spacecraft on the moon. That was about the India. This was the question. Next. With reference to Luna 25 mission, consider the following statements. Regarding this, answer is only 3. That is, Luna 25 weighs heavier than Chandrayaan. This was the only incorrect answer. Rest of the how many statements are correct? It is talking about not individual statement. 3 statements are correct. Only 1 statement is wrong. That is the third statement is wrong. Rest of the 3 statements. The mission has been launched by Russia. Right. Luna 25 does not carry a rover. Right. And the 4th statement is also right. So 3 statements are right, students. Now today's video question. We'll see today's video question. In case of fetal disability, what is the limit of timeline for abortion according to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act? According to the MTP Act, what is the time limit to terminate the pregnancy? Mains question. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Bill 2020 strives to provide reproductive rights to women in India. Examine. So how this bill is providing the reproductive rights to women? That is about this question, students. Now as we reach to the end of this video, we'll do the quick revision. In this video, we discussed about what is the medical termination, what laws are there with respect to medical termination, and we also discussed about the present case, why Supreme Court criticized the Gujarat High Court, and we also discussed about women reproductive rights. Apart from that, what about the minor reproductive rights, and even we also discussed about how the unmarried women previously been discriminated. So this is the detailed analysis regarding the medical termination of pregnancy and observations of the Supreme Court.